Speaking for the faculty today is Dr. Peter Druniani, teacher of English in the upper school. Dr. Druniani came to GA 17 years ago after teaching, among other places, at Temple University and the University of Delaware, and quickly distinguished himself as an exceptional instructor of literature and writing. His classes are legendary for being at once enjoyable and challenging. Doc, as he's affectionately known to students and colleagues alike, is a graduate of Middlebury College with a BA in English. He received his MA from the University of Vermont and his PhD from the University of Delaware, where he specialized in Irish literature. For many years, Dr. Druniani served as an editor for the Journal of Irish Literature and has had his own work appear in 5 different scholarly publications. Since 1982, he has been a reader and a table leader for both the Advanced Placement Language and Literature exams. For the past 12 years, Dr. Druniani has served as a consultant for the College Board, for whom he has conducted advanced placement and vertical team workshops and institutes. At GA, Doc has taught advanced placement English literature, a number of electives, and has coordinated the sophomore English program. His extracurricular activities include directing the Belfry for 6 years, serving as advisor for the Academy Edition for 5, and coordinating the Shakespeare competition for the last 10 years. Dr. Druniani is also a college counselor. For his excellence as a teacher, Dr. Druniani has received Germantown Academy's Outstanding Teacher Award and has been the recipient of 3 Edward R. Cass Fund Grants for professional growth. Last June, he was awarded the William Schaff Chair for Distinguished Teaching in English. I give you Dr. Peter Druniani.
Congratulations, seniors. When I received a voicemail from Mr. Connor in February requesting that I see him at my earliest convenience, I immediately shifted into paranoia and wondered aloud, what egregious faux pas have I committed now? Whom have I offended? I assure you that I was delighted that the purpose of his call was to invite me to speak to you today, and I feel privileged and happy to do so. The often dazzling accomplishments of the class of 1999 in the classroom, on the athletic fields, on stage, and in the studio have been duly praised throughout this academic year and for years before. More impressive and meaningful to me, however, have been the various ways in which the good heart of this class and of the school as a community has triumphed in a year of much sadness. Perhaps this year has, in fact, taught us that the good heart possesses a power that we may never have fully acknowledged before. Charles Dickens's novel, Great Expectations, that's the real Great Expectations, not the hip, tarted-up contemporary film version, which bears only superficial resemblance to the original. Anyway, Dickens's Great Expectations recounts the story of a young man, Pip, whose unexpected inheritance of a fortune gives rise to his great expectations, which would be fully realized in his own eyes only when he became a gentleman. Now, having grown up as an orphan cared for by his alarmingly unpleasant sister and her good-natured blacksmith husband, Joe Gargery, Pip not only surprisingly associates the word gentleman with rank, prestige, and affluence. It was only after he experienced disillusionment, failure, and illness that he recognized that a true gentleman consistently displayed the characteristics of a gentle man. Indeed, Pip gained renewed appreciation for his semi-literate, gentle brother-in-law who had intended, had he been able to pay the engraver, this is a great Dickensian irony, to have put upon his own father's tombstone the words, "Whatsoever the failings of on his part, remember, reader, he were that good in his heart." Joe's faulty grammar itself teaches us that the good heart speaks with its own eloquence. An Irish poet with real eloquence and exquisite grammar, W.B. Yeats, and some of you sort of torment me by calling him Yeats, wrote the following poem entitled "The Lover Pleads with His Friend for Old Friends." Though you are in your shining days, voices among the crowd and new friends busy with your praise, be not unkind or proud, but think about old friends the most. Time's bitter flood will rise, your beauty perish and be lost for all eyes but these eyes. Like Pip, you are all in your shining days with great expectations, personal, scholastic, athletic, even professional. Regardless of how successfully you meet your expectations, and I have no doubt of your considerable success, I hope your experiences have been enriched by these old friends, your teachers and my colleagues at GA, and will become enriched by new friends who will inspire your intellect and your heart, whose eyes will always look at you with affection. When I decided to return to graduate school to pursue a PhD concentrating in Irish literature, I applied to only one program because I only wanted to study with one professor, Bob Hogan, whose books on Irish drama I much admired. Such a single-minded approach to my education could have backfired. Indeed, when I first met Bob at my interview and expressed my excitement of potentially becoming his protege, and of course I was expecting, a returned excitement on his part, he said, "Oh, well, yes, fine, it's been good to meet you. I'm meeting someone for lunch. See ya." That was it. An inauspicious beginning, to be sure. Once in Bob's class, I became inured to his potentially ego-shattering marginal notations on my essays, the most devastating of which consisted of a single word, referring to a rather lengthy bracketed paragraph that I thought blazingly brilliant. The word was stupid, in capital letters. After I recovered from the initial shock of reading that word, I reviewed the paragraph and had to admit it was fairly stupid, a failed attempt to impress Bob with my interpretive daring. When he eventually realized that he wasn't going to get rid of me, that I really did intend to study Irish literature with him, he and his wife invited me to dinner, and a friendship was born. My knowledge of Irish literature, indeed of literature in general, increased exponentially when Bob was my teacher and dissertation director. But I've learned a great deal from a number of other excellent teachers. Ultimately, when I think of Bob, it is his great spirit and good heart that I most warmly recall. As the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Irish Literature, Bob assembled around him a motley crew of graduate student assistants, I was of course one of them, who worked industriously at accepting and rejecting pieces, editing, proofreading, and contributing reviews, but who also gained a certain notoriety as merry pranksters. If the door to Bob's office wasn't open, it was best to knock, to avoid the line of fire of a heated game of darts that Bob and we, his associate editors, would regularly play to escape the tedium of our labors. Never was an issue of the journal completed without Bob's genuine praise, thanks, and a lively celebration. When I directed my first 3 Belfry musicals, Bob, a playwright and actor in his own right, sat in the audience appreciating the shining moments of the plays especially, and dismissing the failures as inevitable imperfections. While by no means perfect himself, Bob nevertheless taught those of us who became close to him the importance of balancing the quest for intellectual excellence with our own imperfect attempts to reveal our good hearts. In 1919, Yeats, yes, this is becoming a mini lesson in Irish literature, wrote A Prayer for My Daughter, in which he expresses his fears and hopes for his child who would grow up in the already tumultuous 20th century. The lines I find most memorable state, "In courtesy I'd have her chiefly learned. Hearts are not had as a gift, but hearts are earned by those that are not entirely beautiful." Sadly, Bob Hogan died this March, but when I remember a day almost 5 years ago, my sadness invariably disappears.